Um, Gosh, where do I start? It has been wild the last 2 weeks. The last video that I did for y'all was 2 weeks ago. $11 inches. Well, no, I take that back. It was probably 10 inches, but in there were some spots where the wind had blown and they were just really big drifts. And my little dog, I have a Doxy. Oh my gosh, Maddie had so much fun. I would take her outside. She would just jump around in the snow and roll around and chase snowballs. And I'd bring her back inside and she'd whine by the door wanting to go back out. Maddie, are you having fun? Give me a minute. Let me explain. There's all kinds of different AI tools out there now. Chat GPT is free. I mean, I don't have the paid version. But the thing that I like about it is that you just, you got it on your phone, or at least I have mine on my phone. And I just talk to it and I say, okay, can you give me some ideas about what to talk about if I'm going to if I want to talk about wool applique, what are some really interesting things that people might ask? And it came up with some of the neatest things. Now, I'd say, what are 10? What is wool applique and how does it differ from other types of applique? That's a good question, and I'm going to answer that in just a minute. What materials are needed to start wool applique projects? What types of wool fabric work best for applique and does it need to be felted? What stitches are commonly used in wool applique and are they hard to learn? How do you prepare and cut wool pieces for applique? These are fantastic questions. This is almost as if you were sitting here asking me these questions, and I'm going to answer some of them. I can't answer all of them because I want to leave some for the next video, but I'm going to answer 2 or 3 of them. What types of threads and needles work best for stitching wool applique? Can you combine wool applique with other materials or techniques like embroidery or quilting? What are some tips for transferring patterns onto wool fabric? How do you care for and clean finished wool applique projects? What are some beginner-friendly projects to start with wool applique? These are such great questions, and so it's leading me, for the video. But the thing that it did not do was it said, tell the history of wool applique. So I went back in and I said, okay, well, these are pretty good questions, but I really would like to know some of the history about wool applique. And so, historical points of wool applique. Now, what I wanted to talk about is there are 3 different areas that wool applique has come into our realm of existence, okay? The first one is in the Middle Ages. I mean, they have, okay, ancient origins. Applique, the art of stitching one fabric piece onto another, has roots that trace back thousands of years in Egypt. Archaeologists have found things, they found textiles, they found things that have wool applique, not necessarily wool applique, but applique itself. And I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. So, and then I said, go give me some citing, give me some resources, some sources that I can go, because I got to go in and I've got to actually cite my sources whenever I'm talking about the history of something. And also, if I've gone online and gone to a website, I've got to be able to cite that source. Number one, because I want to make sure that y'all understand that what I'm doing is I'm giving some really good historical facts about it. And I was talking about ancient Egypt and how they've gone in and they found, the archaeologists have found things. And so that was pretty interesting about ancient Egypt. Then it goes in and it starts talking about all the different Middle Ages and the religious aspects of wool applique or applique. You know, when I go to mass, or when I, as there are some parts of the year when the vestments are just absolutely beautiful. There are some times of the year that everything shuts down and they don't really do anything, like during Lent. There's not very much on there. And then after Easter, they really boost it back up again. And when my girls were little, and not just my girls, but when my grandchildren were little, I volunteered a lot in the children's department, and we did some things that we hung these beautiful long banners. And guess who was in charge of making them? I had no idea that I was getting into wool applique when I was doing it. I mean, I knew that I wanted to have some lambs on it. I knew I wanted to have, the cross. I knew I wanted to have, I can't remember what it was for. It might have been for First Holy Communion. I think that's what it was, because it was white and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And when I was doing it, I would cut out things. Now, I did felt. I did a lot of felt. I didn't do wool. Number one, because wool is very costly. And back then, I live in Florida, again, so you can't get wool. You can now because you can get it online. But you can't just go to the store and buy wool. They don't just don't have it. And so I bought wool felt. And that's what I'd used. I used wool felt, and I used wool flannel. Wool flannel. Now that makes up really pretty too whenever you're doing wool applique. But if you look at if you go in and my family Bible, they have got these beautiful pictures of one of the popes. I can't remember which one it was when the family Bible that I started. I think it was Pope John. Anyway, he had some beautiful vestments, and they were all appliqued. And it's like, wow, I really never thought about it before. But it says, by the Middle Ages, applique had traveled through Europe, becoming a staple of ecclesiastical art. Churches and cathedrals commissioned elaborate banners, altar cloths, and vestments, often with intricate applique designs. And if you think about it, that's just part of going to church, seeing the beautiful art that's there. Then you go in, and it went further because that was the Middle Ages, and then they talk about the religious part of it, and then they go in and they start talking about today, all the different things that you have for today. There's the African tradition, there's folk art. That's my baby. That's my cup of tea, is folk art. There's just plain wool applique, appliquing botanical flowers. A lot of wool applique is flowers. Now, I do want to share, some things with you about some of the other influences that came about and why, they have the things that they do. But I have to share this book. Okay. Hold on just a minute. Let me get back to my picture so that you can see it. Now, according to mine, I hope I've got it turned around correctly. If I don't, I'm going to have to mirror this. More William Morris Applique by Michele Hill. I got this book. I went to a Quilt Guild meeting, and they were cleaning out the library. And I got this thing for $5. Nobody liked applique, and I just love it. And I couldn't believe it. Well, I put it aside, and I put it on my shelf. And here recently, now that we're talking about applique, I pulled it off the shelf. And this was the second book that Michele Hill did. Her first book was just William Morris Applique. Well, I went on Amazon and I ordered it yesterday. I have to have it. I just absolutely got involved with this book, and it started talking about William Morris himself, and had no idea who he was. I guess when I got the book, I got it more so I could look at the patterns and stuff, and I really didn't go into the historical part of it. But as I've gone into this, and as I've reached out and started really learning about different textile things, and I've started designing myself, I'm doing so much more research. This thing is full of research. It's full of stories about William Morris and where he lived. He lived in England. There's a William Morris Museum in England, and I just found out that today when I was doing some research on him. And you're gonna see that a lot of the applique that we do now comes from what he designed. I don't know. Let me see. Look at this. I mean, I just think it is beautiful. I'm a big Downton Abbey person. I just love Downton Abbey. And when the women were sitting there doing their handwork and stuff, and back in the day, I mean, that's what, a lot of the aristocrats did, and did their handiwork and their embroidery. It was between 1800 and 1820s. And you're going to see what I'm talking about when there's lots of botanical flowers, little caricatures, little animals, leaves, just all this beautiful, beautiful handwork, and it's all applique. And I found this on quiltindex.org if you want to go in and look at some more things in there. It's fantastic. There's another one that I want to share with you. And I can't remember. I thought I took 2 pictures. And if I did, I will go in and I'll put it on there so you can see what I'm talking about, where the applique and how the different things are that I'm gravitating to. But that was back in the 1800s and in the 1900s. Then when I got into it, a lot of it was just flowers and things like that. And that's how I learned, and I loved it. And I didn't even do any embroidery work on it. I just stitched some flowers onto something and called it a day. But I've learned a whole lot more now. Another one of my popular designs is A Child is Born, and it's probably it is my most popular design, and I've already sold a couple of them just this week. It's on digital. You can go to the link below if you want to look at it. But it is they're already starting. People are already starting to download it and start to work on it so that they'll have it ready for the holiday season next year. That's how I have to do. I have to start doing things way, 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 way in advance because life gets in the way. You do any kind of embroidery or any kind of quilting or any kind of applique, you know who Sue Spargo is. But the thing is I did not know. I did not realize, let me just put it this way. I did not realize that she was big into folk art. And I guess the reason that I didn't pay that much attention to her is because her fabrics and her colors and the way she likes to do things, she has beautiful colors, but they're very bright. And that's not my cup of tea. I like muted colors. She loves bright colors. I have a friend who bought some Sue Spargo stuff, and she absolutely loved it. And it's all, hand appliqued and all, but it's very bright, bright colors. And the work is beautiful. I mean, the piece is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's beautiful. But everybody likes different things. So, but I wanted to share that with you because she does a lot of folk art. She does a lot of wool applique. She goes around, her family. I was reading up on her today, and her family runs the business while she, goes all over the world and does lessons and stuff like that. Boy, would I love to go to one of hers. But again, hers is totally different than what I like to do. The next person I want to talk about, I have a part in my Pinterest account that is saved specifically for her. I don't know if you can see it. Rebekah Smith. Oh my gosh. You talk about, she's my inspiration. She really is for folk art. She passed away a couple of years ago, and it was devastating for the applique world, for the quilting world. I mean, she's so well known, and her work is beautiful. And her family still has all of her things up and running, and she's still selling, all of her things and stuff. But she absolutely, if you have time, you need to look her up. Her name is Rebekah Smith, and she is, I just can't even imagine talking about wool applique without not talking about her. She has to be involved in it because her work is beautiful. Now, there's so many more people that I follow, and just, oh gosh, there's just so many. But when you look at Rebekah Smith stuff, you know it's Rebekah Smith. So I guess, why am I telling you all of this? My idea of why I got into wool applique is because I want to tell a story. I love the simple drawings that you can embellish to bring things out. I love the ecclesiastical part of applique. I love the fact that back in the 1800s and the 1700s and the 1600s, they were doing wool applique. If y'all can give me some feedback on what you think wool applique is and why you don't like it or you do like it, or if it's hard for you, if you don't know how to do it, have you always wanted to know how to do it but just didn't know where to begin? And that's where we're at. That's where I'm at now. Let me go back to those questions, and let's answer some of them. What is wool applique, and how does it differ from other types of applique? Okay, so I've explained to you what wool applique is. It's using different wools. Okay, and here's some wool that I've got. I've got this beautiful piece. I'm going to put some links down below. I don't sell a lot of the wool itself, and the reason I don't sell it is because I sell wool yarn. That's what I'm into. I dye a lot of wool yarn and things like that. The thing is that I'm going to put some kits together, hopefully, one of these days. And when I do a kit, I'll sell the wool with it. But, I don't specifically just go in there and, sell wool by the yard or by the piece or whatever. But these pieces that I got, my daughter she's a neonatal nurse, and she was doing some travel nursing, and we were in Arkansas. I went over there with her because I wanted to go with her. I didn't want her to go by herself. I wanted an excuse to go to Arkansas. So we went to this little. I just wanted you to see it. We went to this little antique shop, and there was a lady there that had a booth. And oh my gosh, I went crazy. I went absolutely crazy. And this is just some of the pieces. But you know what? I have all these ideas for them, but I don't want to cut my wool up. That's kind of bad. You know, I spent all this money on wool, and then no, I don't want to use it. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, it feels so good. But anyway, so yeah. What's the difference between wool appliquing and regular appliquing, needle turn applique? Wool applique, you don't have to turn under the ends. It's more primitive, hence goldenrod primitives. Regular applique is done with, most often it's done with cotton, quilting thread, quilting fabric. Now again, it doesn't have to be, it can be anything, but most often whenever you do applique with that type of linen or that type of fabric, then you have to do needle turn, which means you've got to turn under those ends so that it doesn't fray. And it's very, I went to a class on it, and this lady was showing me how intricate you had to do each little stitch, and I thought, oh gosh, I'll never finish it. I'll never finish it. Again, I'm not saying that wool applique is messy. It's not. It's just totally different. You use different kinds of threads. You know, you use embroidery thread, you use wool thread, and then with regular applique, you mostly use quilting thread, cotton threads, and things like that. Now, again, a lot of people do things differently, so you know that's just my take on it. Materials are needed to start wool applique projects. Now, you know, if yes, wool is expensive, and it takes a long time to get your stash going. It takes a long time, and if you don't want to use wool at first, do wool felt or do felt. That's a great way to learn. A great way to learn. You'll gravitate towards wool because the thing that with me is that if you, and another thing I found out when I was doing some research on folk art is that folk art and primitive things is mostly utilitarian, and what that means is it's that people do it because they want to use it for something. It's not just to be sitting around and looking pretty. They want to use it. Quilts, you know, different like candle mats, place mats, purses, things for the kitchen, things for the wall art. That's utilitarian. People want to decorate their homes, you know, and stuff. And so that's what it's used for. So that's what I'm getting at is it can be expensive at first just to buy your wool, but now one thing I did do is I used to go to thrift shops and get wool jackets and wool slacks and wool skirts and start like that, and I did that. But let me tell you something, you have to be careful with that because especially, you know, a men's jacket, you think, wow, look at all of this wool. I'm going to be able to get so much out of it, and I'm going to be able to use so much. But by the time you take out the fused in interfacing and all of the stuff that they put in it, that they apply to it to make the jacket, you have to toss it. You can't use it. Or at least I don't like it. I don't use it. And so by the time you get this big jacket, and by the time you've taken everything out of it, you'd have such a small part and you spent so much time. you know, I think it's better to just, blankets are good ones now. I have bought blankets, and I've used blankets in my wool applique. So every time you go to a thrift store, every time you go to an estate sale, every time you go, now you can get a wool sweater and you can wash it and felt it yourself and then cut it out and use that. Now that tends to be really thick, but it's according to what you want to do with it. So that's how to get started with materials that you're using. Now another thing is, and I'll attach that as well, I have one of my designs that I did, I call it, I think I call it All Autumn Leaves. I'm going to have to look at the back of it. I put my title on it. It has wool applique on cotton. The background is cotton. Because if you've got a big piece, that's a lot of wool. That is a lot of expense. So why not get all the small pieces of wool and put it on a cotton background or a linen background and talk about beautiful work? It turns out beautifully. I'm in some groups on Facebook that are cotton and wool. And some ladies, some stitchers and seamstresses, they do so much with it. So I'll attach that as well, and so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, what types of wool fabric work best for applique, and does it need to be felted? Well, I think I've already talked about that. I like felted. All of this is felted. Every bit of this. When I buy from a company and I bring it home, first thing I do is wash it in the hottest water and put it in the hottest dryer. And I want to felt it. That's just the way I am. That's why I like it. Or not why I like it. That's the one I like. What stitches are commonly used in wool applique, and are they hard to learn? Okay, so that's gonna be my last question for right now, but I wanted to show you this. I have this other book. It's called A Year of Embroidery. And one of the things that I want to learn this year, from my other video, I was talking about, having a growth mindset and doing things and learning things. I want to learn all the different stitches. My grandmother taught me a lot of them, but the one that I use most often is the chain stitch and blanket stitch. I'll show you how to do those, but there's so many more. But those are the two that I like the most. So anyway, I'm going to stop on that. That's the fourth question. I'm going to leave some more for the next video. But the next video, what I want to do is, I got some things in the mail today on an applique pad that you put on your table to iron your pieces, and so it doesn't stick to your iron. I've not wanted to. I've been putting off because I was thinking, oh, I'm just going to pin with applique pins, and I think growth mindset. I want to go in and I want to learn something else. So I bought that. I'll show you how to work with that. We'll probably learn together on that one. But anyway, again, subscribe and, comment. I'd love to get some questions from you. I think this is the fourth or fifth video that I've put up, so it's starting to push out now. So maybe you could put some comments in here and let me see if I can answer those for you. Like and subscribe and all of that if you want to. But again, if you start watching mine, then they're going to start pushing more wool applique to you, and you're going to see some really great work. You're going to like some better than others, but I haven't seen any that talks about the history, or I haven't seen any that talks about your inspiration. And my inspiration again is Rebekah Smith. I mean, it's just amazing what she has done, what she did for the applique world. God bless her. God rest your soul, Becky, because it's, you're missed. But anyway, okay, everybody, I'm going to go in and I'm going to fix dinner and check on my mom and my hubby, and I'll chat with y'all soon. Okay, bye, everybody.